Hi, Ms. Buckhoff. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation of
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
this interview, and thank you for your time. And before my questions, could you please tell me about yourself, like a general and brief background, and how did you become an instructor, and how long have you been teaching writing, and do you like this job?
Okay, good question. I've been teaching for the English department and also for the American Culture and Language program under the auspices of the College of Extended Learning since about 1994 and 1997. 18 years. So I've been teaching writing from either native speakers or to multilingual students during that time. My background, I have a bachelor's degree in Spanish from Brigham Young University. I have a master's degree from Cal State San Bernardino here. And I got my master's degree in English composition with a supplemental emphasis of teaching English as a second language.
And my first question is, what are your beliefs about writing? And for you, what constitutes good writing and how is it achieved? I mean, for the particular population that you teach. And the third question is...
Okay, let's go to your first question. Some of my general beliefs about writing are that it's a process and that it's learned through hard work. Students have to work on their papers in a series of either drafts and workshops, and we have a lot of classroom discussion and those kinds of things. Those are some of my beliefs. Let me go back to listen to your question one more time.
Is, what are your beliefs about writing? And for you, what constitutes good writing and how?
So good writing is typically organized. It has a coherent type organization. It's connected, in the beginning and the body paragraphs and the conclusion. And typically good writing, a writer will use a number of cohesive devices to make those kinds of connections. For example, writers might use transition words as a way of connecting ideas and showing different relationships. In addition, they may use determiners and pronouns as a way of connecting old information to new. Also, they may rephrase or repeat key terms as a way of connecting everything, and even writers may use parallel structures. So good writers have a arsenal of tools that they can use. In composition, we call these heuristics, and good writers know how to use these kinds of tools to help them manage their writing. How is it achieved? How is good writing achieved? By practice, by hard work, and also by reading and paying attention to the language that the readers are using.
How is it achieved? I mean, for the particular population that you teach. And the third question is, what types of texts or materials do you use in your classes? What do you do with those texts?
Okay, so first of all, when I'm teaching writing in the American Culture and Language program, I typically use a ESL type text, and the text is geared more toward advanced ESL students. The text is geared toward helping them accomplish two different research projects in the class. The first project helps them, it's called a guided research project. So instead of giving the students their own agency to find the research from the library, the first research project, they use the articles, the research articles in the back of the writing book. And I can't remember the name of the book right now, but that's kind of what the book does. So the second writing assignment, they come up with their own research question, and then they find the research articles in the library to help them write that particular paper. So I think a good ESL writing book will have some good readings. It'll have some instruction for the students to help them understand. For example, if they want to respond to a reading or they want to summarize a reading, they'll know how to accomplish those two tasks. I think a good ESL writing book for advanced students, it shows them how to deal with other people's ideas. We call these sources, and how to integrate them into the writing to help either analyze or to back up the argument that they might be making. So I see some of these things as being important, as important things to consider in a writing book. Also, there will be a little bit of editing and maybe grammar suggestions for the students, just within the context of helping them negotiate their paper and put together the kind of language and the grammar that would be suitable for the advanced level. So that would be some of the things that I would see in a textbook for high advanced ESL students.
And how do you view your role in helping students achieve their status? And what about students' roles? Do your roles change according to different populations, like ESL students, native speaker students, and students that have particular needs or interests?
Well, the role kind of changes according to the purpose, what I'm trying to do. So sometimes I might be the instructor or the teacher, and I'm explaining some things. In other cases, when we have individual and group discussions, I become more the guide or the facilitator, where the students are coming up with the information that they need, either for a presentation or for the project they might be working on. So I think the role will change. It will change not just because it's a non-native speaker or ESL class or an academic type writing class for native speakers. The role changes according to the purpose, what exactly I'm trying to do within that class. So obviously, having a teacher-centered classroom all the time, no, that's not going to work for anybody. So the students need to have a lot of control over their learning, especially when I teach the level 6 writing class. I mean, these guys are all graduate students, so they need to have more of an independent type role over their own learning, not just things coming from me, and that helps prepare them for the graduate study that they're about to get into.
And my fifth question is, what are your beliefs about ESL students? What makes you feel you are successful during and after teaching writing?
I would say part of the way that I generate my success, or I evaluate my success, it's the kind of questions they ask. I mean, for example, in just a minute ago in my TOEFL class I was teaching, a Japanese student came up to me and says, "Hey Michael, you talked a little bit about the difference between to and so. And you said so is more negative, can be used in a negative sense, and then maybe so would be different." But he created a conversational scenario I thought was brilliant. He said, "Well, what if I say about this? What if I say, well, I'm not very good looking, so my wife is too beautiful for me." And I liked that. I liked how he came up with that situation. So to me, that's a success. A success is he's an active learner. He's motivated to learn information on his own. He's not afraid to ask questions when he has one. And in my writing classes, that would also be, I think, a sign of success. When my students are working on their projects, if they feel comfortable talking to me and they participate well in the scheduled workshops as they work on reviewing their own drafts, as they review other people's drafts within the class, I call these peer review workshops. As they're doing these kinds of things, the more they can work on their own and solve problems on their own, I think the more success I'm having as an ESL teacher.
And would you weigh writing components like grammar, structure, or ideas differently based on different population of students? If so, how is it different from each other?
That's a good question. Believe it or not, I'm teaching 102, 103, 104. I teach a multilingual section of that this quarter. I'm also teaching the 105 and the 106 classes, and these are native speakers. Incredibly, a lot of my non-native speakers, they have just as many, if not more, grammatical errors or problems than a lot of my non-native speakers do. So, in fact, my multilingual class, it's a 103B class this quarter. This particular class is doing better than my 105 and 106 native speaker classes I'm teaching right now. No kidding. So in terms of weighting grammar, I mean, in terms of giving, I think, a paper a grade, I don't really treat my ESL students any differently. I mean, if I did, I mean, they would be getting a lot higher grades than everybody else, which, well, they already do. But I don't see that I have to really give them too much leeway with their grammar problems, because my native speakers also have similar problems. The only thing I might do differently with my ESL students is I schedule more workshops, particularly more editing workshops for them. And I make sure in my multilingual class, they all speak more than one language, but there are at least, I think there's 4 non-native speakers in the class. The rest of them are pretty much bilingual. They speak 2 languages almost the same. So I make sure when we're doing workshops, one of those non-native speakers will be separated into different groups with the other students who have a little bit better grasp of the language. That way they can get a lot of help from some of their classmates, which seems to work out pretty well there. Let me go back to the question, listen to it one more time. Hold on.
Like grammar, structure, or ideas difference.
Okay, now this gives me another thing I want to talk about. Here's what I look at in terms of grade. Number 1, does the student meet, or does the essay meet the requirements of the assignment? Do they do, if there's 4 parts of it, do they do all 4 parts? How well do they do all 4 parts? The next thing is, how much depth and complexity of thought do they have in the paper? That's also something I consider when I look at the essays, both native and non-native speakers. The third thing is, how coherently and logically organized are the ideas? And does the writer have appropriate reasons and examples to support those ideas? Those are things I look for in grading. And then finally, last but not least, I look at the grammar and the sentence structure and the punctuation. So you can probably look at the grammar as maybe 15 to 20% of the grade, but then I consider all those other elements I just talked about.
Based on different population of students? If so, how is it different from each other? Yeah.
So I think what I just said, I basically look at the different populations almost the same. There's really no difference in how I grade them. I look at the requirements for these types of classes. I look at what I'm trying to get them to do with the assignments, and I evaluate them according to those things.
In what way you differ from other writing instructors?
That's an interesting question. Let me listen to that again.
In what way you differ from other writing instructors?
Okay, so your question is, in what way do you differ from other writing instructors? So I'm going to say that I'm probably pretty comparable to a lot of other teachers around. One thing that I might do that is different, which is what I'm doing with you right now, when I'm going over students' essays, I sometimes do it by internet. I give them audio comments about their papers. I go over the paper paragraph by paragraph. I discuss it with them. I talk about the organization and the examples and the details. I might bring up some editing issues, comma splices or fragments or sentence problems, and I show them how they can repair those things. So sometimes I will give comments via the internet by audio to make it more personal. So that might make me a little bit different than other instructors.
Do you teach the way you learn? Would you make adjustment or attempt of new methods?
Yeah, that's a good question. Currently, the English department underwent some changes, I'm going to say about 5 or 6 years ago, in terms of how we approach writing and the teaching of writing in our program. So I was kind of doing it the way I was taught in the 90s. But then I had one of the instructors who evaluated one of my comp classes. She gave me a whole bunch of new ideas on how I can approach it based on the current pedagogy and current theory and all those kinds of things. So one of the things I did is I got rid of the St. Martin's Guide to Writing, which is a very explicit book on how to write essays, and it, according to a lot of the current theory, it really was too structured, and it would kind of take away the critical thinking of the students. So I went ahead and got rid of that book, and I changed to a reader. So now we just have a book that has 75 readings in it, and I structure my own writing assignments, and we spend a lot of time looking at the reading assignments in the book, and we discuss how the writer has put together the essay and those kinds of things. So I actually did. You can't teach an old dog new tricks is actually false, because I was an old dog and I was doing things a certain way, and I changed them to try to reflect the new theory and the new pedagogy regarding composition.
And how do you make sure you meet the needs of students? And how do you assess your students' achievement?
Okay, how do I make sure I'm meeting their needs? I try to ask a lot of questions. I have 8 office hours a week. I tell them to come by when they have questions. They can email me and contact me. So I try to do that. And then your last question, let's go back. Let me listen to it again one more time.
The needs of students, and how do you assess your students' achievement?
So I assess my students' achievement as when they turn in their. I have several different writing assignments in the class. For example, I have 2 response journals they have to turn in. I also have an oral presentation they have to do near the end of the quarter. They also have to do 2 6 to 7 page multi-draft projects. I assess those. And also I give them a series of unannounced pop quizzes on the readings assigned in their textbook to make sure they're doing their reading, because I found out that a lot of students will not do the readings unless they think they will have some type of a quiz on it. And we also spend a lot of time discussing those readings when we're in our class. So those are some of the things I try to do to assess my students' achievement.
And my last question is, how will you prepare students for standardized assessment like TOEFL and IELTS, something like that?
Interesting. I actually teach the TOEFL preparation courses over here at the American Culture and Language Program, and I prepare them. It's interesting. It's called the 7-step system to pass a TOEFL IBT. You can check it out. Go to bettertoeflscores.com. That is my online TOEFL course. My theory toward preparing them toward standardized assessment is to help them become proficient in 7 key areas. Vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, those are the 3 basic building blocks of the language, and then they practice the reading, listening, writing, and speaking sections of the exam. So my theory here and my philosophy is to get the students proficient in those 7 key areas. They can complete all of their practice tests online, with the exception of the speaking and the writing. They're all graded by computer. And when they complete their pronunciation, speaking, and writing practice tests, I score them, or I have a teaching assistant who scores them within about 24 hours after having completed the practice test. So I try to give them a lot of feedback to help get them going in the right direction with their speaking, pronunciation, and their writing. So toward the standardized assessment, I use an online TOEFL course that I created. It has over 630 lessons, almost 500 hours of instruction to help students become more proficient with the language, so then when they take the IELTS exam or the TOEFL exam, they will have the English they need to score high on those tests.
Okay, that's
all right. Well, thank you.